Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of musical duos, looking at artists who are comprised of just two primary masterminds. There can be session musicians during performances or studio recordings, but that just two people are the main minds behind it. Today we're going to be looking at Dead Can Dance, a group that we've had on the channel before featuring Brendan Perry and Lisa Gerrard. They've been a group that I've been warming up to over time, and I find their compositions to be quite intriguing. I'm expecting more of that today. We're going to be looking at Summoning of the Muse, which comes off of their 1987 album, Within the Realm of a Dying Sun. Let's dive in and see what Dead Can Dance are bringing to the table today. So very epic, very vast of a sound. We're operating in a 3/4. Strings, we have timpani in the background, we have some bells off to the left. Ooh, the dyad there. Yeah, some minor harmonic instability there. Holding this out, and then we're going to resolve this tension there. Yep. Interesting. It certainly sounds epic, but I'd say the harmonic emotion of it is dreary. Almost seems like a little bit of regret in this as well. It has a ritualistic edge to it. Also, that last couple of vocal parts don't know, for some reason I got a theme song music in my head. I can't think of what song it is. All right. Very solid track. It does its one thing that it does, and it does it very well. I tried to listen for variations on that to see if maybe I could break this up into, I don't know, sections, maybe a verse chorus idea. Maybe that exists on the vocal element, but as I listened to the timpani, which is the percussive, like low bassy rolling that happens in the background, as I listened to the bells off on the side, as I listen to the chord progression throughout, it generally feels very similar in every section of this song. So, like I said, without looking at the lyrics here, it just feels like one extended section to me with minor variations throughout, but not enough for me to be able to break up into like a roadmap for me to kind of section off parts of the track and view them individually from other parts. I kind of just take this whole song in as one specific idea, and it excels at what it's doing though. It sets a tone right from minute one, right from second one, honestly, and it leads with that through the whole thing. And despite being 5 minutes of a very focused idea, I'm fairly engaged with it throughout. Oh, you know what? There is one section that kind of stands out to me though. It was that harmonic instability part. I don't think we returned to that though. So it's not like that could have been a chorus or something similar to that. But like I said, it excels at what it's doing. It feels epic, it feels ritualistic, it feels heavy. And it does all of this stuff very well with a small group of instruments. And when I say small group, I'm grouping the strings and the brass all together as just one instrument. So we have them, which I know is like 5 or 6 instruments in that group, and then the vocals, the percussion, and the bells. So I kind of view it in just those 4 parts, even though there's probably quite a few instruments on this. So, first things first, we're in 3/4. The bells deliver this. Dun 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 dun, just constantly emphasizing quarter notes and moving on every single one of them, laying out also a harmonic idea. I do believe there are 2 patterns to this. The one at the beginning was different than the one at the end. The one at the end was simply 3 notes. I don't know what they are. I'm just going to call them 1, 2, and 3. It was 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2. That was the entire pattern. You go up, you bounce back up, and then you come down and you start it over again. It gives a little bit of movement, it gives a little bit of harmonic information, but primarily it gives the rhythm. It gives the core pulse that everything exists upon while also presenting a unique sound. It is what sounds to me like these large vertical bells. It's just metal tubes that are varying lengths that are usually held upright. And then you just take a mallet and you strike it, and it has this nice metallic resonant tone to it. There's all sorts of different materials that you can use, all sorts of different colorings you can give it, but that's what it sounds like to me, and you just don't hear that too often in modern music outside of classical. So I appreciate its use here. Well, I appreciate what I think is its use here. I honestly don't know. It could be digital for all I know. And I could be totally wrong on the instrument too. So if anyone has insight into that, maybe there's a live video where we can see the instrument, please let me know. But that's what I'm hearing there, and it's very cool. It also has a nice reverberation on it. It feels large despite just being quarter note hits. It takes up a lot of space. I found it interesting that it was pushed off to the side, but eventually that kind of worked for me. It balances itself out with the strings that exist over here, the brass that kind of fill in the middle, and the three of those create the foundation for the vocals. It ends up working rather well. Now, speaking of the strings and brass, that's just chords all the way through. Sometimes we get single hits, but for the most of it, just holding out a chord, switch to the next one, hold that one out, switch to the next one, hold that one out. It's what they do the entire time. Under that, we have the timpani rolls. Timpanis are four very large drums, usually positioned around the drummer. They usually have some sort of fuzzy mallet that they hit them with, gives it a nice round resonant tone, more so than like a drumstick, which is going to be a bit more direct and sharp of a tone. I've never seen a drumstick used on a timpani. I kind of wonder if the drum head could take that very directed impact or if it would tear. I don't know. I've played timpani, only ever done it with fuzzy mallets. Anyways, it's a wonderful instrument. All four instruments have different, or all sorry, all four drums in the timpani set have different sized drum heads, which is going to change the pitch. But then there's also a tuning pedal that is on it, so you can actually tune them on the fly if you want. But usually, for most songs, you're just going to have the four notes that you preset for that specific performance. And they just sound great. They are massive drums and they're very resonant. It lots of reverb and echo off of them. It fits really well with the bells going on over here. It just makes everything feel very large. It's what ties into this very epic feeling throughout. These are used sparsely every couple of bars just for a single roll to give a little bit of a rumble beneath the song. I dig that. It's a percussion instrument that is used texturally more than rhythmically because, as I mentioned, the bells are giving us our metronome. They're the ones that are keeping the tempo. So this is really just done for flavor here. And that just leaves the vocals. Everything else is texture. It's all atmosphere. It's building up the environment for this lead melody to exist in. The lead melody is very ethereal, both I think harmonically and sonically, the way that the vocals are produced. They have quite a bit of body and physicality to them, but just a hint of ethereal airiness as well. It's not quite that like that modern pop kind of have a whisper while you're singing your song kind of aesthetic that's very popular today, but there is a little bit of that airiness present in it. And to me, having like that 10% airiness versus 90% like physical body to the vocals, it sounds mixed of both something grounded and spiritual, maybe. It adds a lot to the song as far as characteristic. We also have multiple vocal lines going on here, and when they come together, it sounds very choir-esque, which also has more of a spiritual side to it, at least as far as my ear and my bias for that sound. And so, like I mentioned, this kind of, it feels very of this plane. It feels very grounded. It feels very rooted, but it also dips its toe on the other side of that, feeling ethereal and weightless at times, and even a bit spiritual. It's a nice mix of that, and for a song that's called Summoning of the Muse, it is a wonderful atmosphere to craft, since I assume a summoning process would involve something ritualistic. Most summons are, or most ways that you summon things are through summoning rituals, at least as far as fantasy typically goes. But the idea of summoning a muse, I think, is interesting too. And I've been thinking about this whole time because, like, the music, like I said, it's just what it is. We've already kind of defined that. It's epic. There's a few instruments. They do their thing. It's mostly foundation and melody. I had a lot of time to think, what is Summoning the Muse? What does this song say to me about that title? I mentioned that the song has a weight to it. It isn't just the epic largeness of it. It isn't just the vastness of the song, but when you look at it harmonically, the chord progression used, there's something melancholic about it. I mentioned that I heard a little bit of regret in it as well. I find this interesting. Usually, when you summon a muse, you're trying to find inspiration. That's what that phrase means to me. It could be a musical muse. You're trying to find inspiration for a new song. Could be an artistic muse. Maybe you are a sculptor or a painter and you're trying to find that inspiration for your next work of art. Summoning the muse would be a process of attempting to find that inspiration. Why would that be melancholic? Why would there be regret tied to that? It's something that I don't quite think I fully understand at this point. But the way that I kind of walk away from this is that there's a process. Rituals typically happen without any sort of sacrifice. Something must be given for something to be returned, or for something to be gained. And I'm curious if that's what this is. A song about someone trying to find inspiration in any way possible by whatever means and through whatever sacrifice. That's why it feels epic and large. This is a bigger thing than they've ever done before, where maybe art came easy to them. Everything was a muse. Now they are at a drawing block, a writer's block. So they're getting a bit desperate. They're going for a ritual. They're ready to give something up in order to obtain some inspiration. I don't know if that's necessarily what Brendan and Lisa were going for. That's what I hear in it. And because of this desperation that I feel in the song, it elevates the epicness. It brings forth that larger than life component. This isn't just about summoning a muse anymore. This is about trying to find your love for your art again. Because there might be a part in your mind where you're thinking, if this doesn't work, I'll never draw again. I'll never write music again. It is a last ditch attempt, and that adds a lot of weight to the concept that I think the song adequately captures. I think what really made this work for me is that harmonic dissonance that occurred somewhere around the middle of the track. There's two vocal lines. The first is the one that we had been hearing for a while, consonant with everything else. It just fits. It feels great to listen to against all the other music and the foundational aspects. And then there's a second part that moves quite a bit faster, and it has a descending line to it as far as pitch is concerned. Many of those pitches clash really hard with the main line melody in a way that to me almost feels microtonal. It could just be less stable dyads in a 12-tone chord, which is just, typical, the 12 notes that you see on a piano in an octave. Typical Western division of an octave. But microtone is when you divide an octave by a different number than 12. And you get some notes that Western music typically doesn't use, the notes between the notes on the piano. And that's what it feels like to me. There is a new kind of beauty in those moments, but it's definitely not traditionally stable consonant harmonic work either. It's not abrasive, but it's not stable. There's newness in there. It's exciting, but it's also dangerous. That's what I get out of that moment. This whole concept that this summoning ritual is beyond the normal means of production of art, of inspiration, of engaging with your artistic side. And I think that's what I love most about it. It's a simple song on the surface, but it has a ton of depth, and I probably haven't gotten all of it either. This is just the first time listen. Maybe there's some things that I didn't hear in this that also can add on to this entire context that I've sort of picked up from it on a narrative side. I'm going to go look up some lyrics for this, and then we're going to wrap this video up. Alright, there doesn't appear to be any lyrics. Genius and many websites declare this an instrumental, which makes me think that there's just no words, even though there are sung syllables. And I vaguely remember when we checked out an earlier Dead Can Dance song that I saw a comment that the group made their own language for some songs and then just used random syllables for others too, that it was more about the performative side of the vocal work rather than the linguistic side, or the poetic side, I suppose would be a more accurate word. So, without any lyrics to dive into, we're going to wrap this up. These are my thoughts on Dead Can Dance's Summoning of the Muse. What did you think of this song? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on if I was incorrect in places? Maybe you have your own interpretation or read on this. Please put any of that, as well as any thoughts you have, down in the comment section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. Alright, that wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.